Welcome to Rails, Ales, and Old Towns. Tucked between two turquoise lakes and surrounded by majestic peaks, Interlaken has long been one of Switzerland's most beloved destinations. Back in the Victorian day, this town was a glamorous resort that attracted well-heeled travelers from all around Europe. And these days, it's revered for being an adventure sports mecca and the perfect jumping-off point for myriad Alpine pursuits. Well, today I'm joined by Celina from Interlaken Tourism to talk about this special town, its unique history, and all the fun you can have while visiting. On the show, we cruise across beautiful bodies of water, ride the rails up to mountaintop meadows, tour grand hotels, and even join the locals for a game of ice hockey. And of course, because this is Switzerland after all, there's some talk of cheese, cows, and Alphorns. All right, let's go to Interlaken.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform.
All right, let's welcome to Rails, Ales, and Old Towns, Celina from Interlaken Tourism.
Thank you so much, Scott. Happy to be here.
Thanks for joining me. So first off, I just need to know, what's it like living between two gorgeous lakes at the foot of the Alps?
It's the dream. It's the perfect playground, actually.
And you're not just saying that. We got to be clear. You work for Interlaken Tourism, but you were born and raised in Interlaken.
Exactly. I was born and raised here. Even my dad was born and raised here. So I couldn't be more local. I still live in the heart of town right now. Yeah, it's truly a joy to live here and experience things that a lot of people wait years to come here to and wake up to it every single day.
Yeah, I'm not going to compare, the Alps and the lakes of Switzerland to where I live, York, England, but there is a bit of that, and it's really special to, like I'll be cycling into the supermarket and you see people and you can tell how excited they are to be there, and you're like, wow, I get to live in someone's once in a lifetime trip.
Exactly, and I love York, to be fair.
Oh, you've been?
I've been, yeah.
You don't want to be with those pretty lakes and mountains all year round.
All the time, exactly.
Tell me, just out of curiosity, how you ended up, representing your town and how it became a career.
Growing up in Interlaken, you grow up with tourism, right? Yeah, I kind of always knew I wanted a career in tourism, but I did work in Bern for a couple of years after finishing my studies, not in tourism, and always kind of had a look at roles at Interlaken Tourism. And then one fateful day, I applied and got my role and have been with Interlaken Tourism almost 8 years now.
All right. So you did a little time in the big city, but then headed back.
Exactly. And I have to say, I always lived in Interlaken during that time. I commuted only 50 minutes. And yeah, my parents always lived in the town center as well. So back then I still lived at home. I always ran to the train station with like a minute to spare.
It's kind of fun to run for a train at the last minute. I've mentioned before on this podcast, it's exhilarating. But in Switzerland, it's a new level because you can almost guarantee that train's going to be on time. So you can cut it close.
You can cut it super close. And I do have to say, a few times when I ran and I just boarded the train, the doors shut behind me.
Then once you pull that off and you sit down, it's like a high of catching it at the last second and then sitting down. And then as soon as you move, it's like, ah.
Exactly. It's like, okay, back to sleep.
Oh yeah, train naps. That's a whole different subject some other time. I want to kind of know like the story of Interlaken because it's become so famous and it's this small town, relatively. Can you give me a little more background on like how exactly it became this hotspot?
For sure. No, and I like that you don't say city. It's actually a town. Many mistake it for a city because it has a big name, but actually Interlaken is quite small. Tourism started very early on, and I'm not sure if you knew that Interlaken wasn't always called Interlaken.
I am aware of this.
Exactly. So it was called Armühle before, but it's quite hard to pronounce for someone that isn't German speaking. So our tourism forefathers way back when already were thinking, what could you do? And they already, of course, are very well aware of the location where we are. So obviously it comes from interlacus, so the Latin wording. And they were like, and somehow they kind of, threw it up in the air and Interlaken came about.
That name that
Mm-hmm.
means between two lakes, correct?
Exactly.
Okay. It was a heck of a branding effort to just tell people in the name this scenic location.
Yes, our forefathers were already very marketing oriented, I guess.
I think maybe it took me to actually get there to hear that, to know what it meant.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
if you're not, you don't necessarily you hear Interlaken because it's being pronounced Locken. You're not necessarily
Mm-hmm.
thinking lake.
Exactly, exactly. And then whenever I tell people, they're like, oh yeah, that actually makes sense. But tourism even started earlier than that because Interlaken got a little bit famous because we had a monastery and the monks came. They would stay at is now one of the oldest hotels in Switzerland, the Hotel Interlaken, and they're still up and running. They're over 800 years old.
Wow, several renovations over the years though.
Exactly.
So the monks came for spiritual tourism.
Exactly, I would say so. And there's many mysteries around that time. If you look at Harderkolm, it's our local mountain. From town, you can actually see kind of a face that's carved into the stone. And the mystery says that a monk was stalking a girl up in the mountain that was picking berries. And she got so scared when she realized that the monk was stalking her. She ran off the cliff of the mountain. He followed her. And the Hardermanli is now looking over us and is kind of a reminder that we shouldn't be sinful down here.
Okay, that'll remind you.
The monks came. Then around 1800, Lord Byron came. Goethe, so big writers that wrote about the area. That was the first form of marketing that we got.
This Lord Byron, I mean, this guy was a one-man European trip
Mm-hmm.
machine. I mean, this guy was
Mm-hmm.
going everywhere, but especially Switzerland and Italy, writing, waxing poetic, and people followed him.
Exactly. He was the content creator of the 1800s. And around at the same time, we also had the first Unspunnenfest, which is kind of a festival of Swiss traditions. So Schwingen, so kind of like Swiss wrestling, yodeling, Alphorn playing, are the Trachten, so the traditional Swiss gowns for each canton. So it's kind of a celebration of Swiss culture only every 12 years. But then another Brit came, Thomas Cook, with the first group tourists. So yeah, that was also a big push, of course, for tourism for the region. And then also the construction of the Jungfrau Railway started. After 16 years in 1912, they opened. Mind you, they didn't have the machines that they have now, so it was all hand constructed. The Jungfrau Railway, of course, leads all the way up to the Jungfraujoch, top of Europe, which is the highest railway station in Europe, thanks to Adolf Guillet-Zeller, who was the forward-thinking visionary.
A lot of forward-thinking people in Interlaken.
Exactly. And I mean, people told him, you're crazy, that's never going to work.
So you've got this Victorian era, a lot of British people
Yeah,
coming to stay in these grand hotels, some of which are still around.
exactly,
And they're
exactly.
going they're going to the ballrooms. It's a sophisticated kind of thing. They're
Hmm.
taking the mountain air, they're doing all this. You flash forward 100 years and now you're this center for like extreme sports and adventure sports. How does that happen?
We kind of brand ourselves as the adventure capital of Europe. So really anything crazy you can think of, you can do it here. The early 1980s, adventure sports started. I mentioned Interlaken as a playground earlier, and it really is. You have the mountains around, paraglide. The pilots always tell me Interlaken has the perfect thermals. You can probably fly most days out of the year anywhere in the world here because the wind.
Had to be some group of friends started this.
Exactly, that were a bit crazy and, tickle life a little bit more.
Yeah, and now look at it today. It's there's people coming to Interlaken just for that. I first heard of Interlaken because my sister had been there. She
Hmm.
backpacked around. She told me about this town and how fun it was.
And I mean, in the 1980s, I mean, probably pretty similar to your sister, a lot of American backpackers came. They were staying at hostels because it was in one of the guidebook Bibles back then. And they were all staying more or less in the same hostel. And yeah, they came for their summer vacation and to see where they can get their next thrill.
Yeah, there's no question that coming to Interlaken has become almost like a bit of a rite of passage for
Hmm.
international, backpacker. It's like this little box you tick. Those fancy hotels. Can you just tell
Yeah.
me a little bit about those? Because there's like a couple that are just that classic architecture and history.
Exactly. So, I mean, the Victoria Jungfrau, which is, I would say, the flagship five-star hotel that we have, has been around again also in the early 1800s. Actually, the Victoria Jungfrau used to be two hotels. They then put the hotels together. I mean, what can I say? The royals from all over the world, of course, stayed there. And it has the perfect view from Interlaken to the Jungfrau. And I'm not sure, Scott, if you remember when you came to Interlaken, there was a big park in the middle where nothing was built on.
There were some cows hanging around.
Exactly. And no one is allowed to actually build on there because it's right in front of the Victoria Jungfrau. They don't want their view to be obstructed, right? Back to our forefathers, because no two Swiss can probably have the same opinion. The park is actually owned by multiple Interlaken people, and no one can ever agree on anything. So I can tell you now that there will never be anything built to obstruct the view of the Jungfrau from the middle of town in Interlaken.
That's great to know. So when we get that nice room at the hotel, the Victoria Jungfrau, and we open up the shutters, we're going to get our view of the
Exactly.
mountains. So the Victoria Jungfrau is one that is famous, and there's one other one.
So that would be Grand Port Rivage. It's also a beautiful property. And if I'm not mistaken, it's the same architect that actually built those two hotels.
Okay, so it's that, almost gingerbread house, grand,
Very princess-like as well.
and great view. So even if you don't
Exactly.
stay there, maybe going in there for a drink or something like that.
Have a coffee on their terrace and watch the paragliders land right in front of the Jungfrau.
Okay, well there's a great insider tip first.
Exactly.
I know you're fond of saying that in Interlaken you can experience all of Switzerland in one place.
Well, I mean, we talked about a bit about adventure sports, right? But I really want to stress that Interlaken is really accessible for everyone, whether you want to jump out of an airplane or you want to enjoy a bit more. And, everything is super accessible. I mean, even going up the mountains, as I mentioned before, you can easily take the train and do a easy, quick hike. You don't even have to if you don't want to. You can have a nice coffee and a cake on top of the mountain and then come back down. So that's really what you're looking for in Switzerland, right? When you come to Switzerland, first of all, you think mountains. And then, of course, lakes, which you said before as well. We have two, Lake Thun and Lake Brienz. And then the classic things like cows, the chocolate, the watches.
What about some cheese? Is there a cheese experience around there?
Yes, so actually every September, mid-September, when the cows come back down from the Alps, because the cows in summer they go up the Alp to eat the fresh grass up there that gives the chocolate such an amazing taste then. Or of course the cheese with the milk. We have a gaasdeilet. So you or I could, for example, lease a cow. Yes, you heard that right. Lease a cow. And basically, what happens is that you get the part of the milk of the cow that is then being produced into cheese. Each mid-September, they then split the cheese amongst the leasers, basically. So that's a super unique experience that I believe you cannot get anywhere else in the world but Switzerland, that not too many places in Switzerland where you can actually also go and see it as well.
Last but not least, as far as quintessential Swiss experiences,
Hmm.
is there anywhere around Interlaken or in Interlaken where I can see somebody playing Alphorn?
Yes, in summer we have the traditional concerts. So sometimes it's yodelers, which is also super traditional. But for example, up in Hapkön, so only 20 minutes by post bus in Interlaken, you can go and actually see how a Alphorn is manufactured.
Now that's something.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're coming to Interlaken. What are our big list highlight things to do and see?
Of course, one of the highlights when people come to Interlaken is a mountain excursion. So whether it's the Jungfraujoch, top of Europe, which I mentioned earlier, or the Schildhorn, which was a James Bond filming location, those two are definitely two highlights, I would say. But if you want to see something that's a little bit more quaint, one of my favorites is actually the Schienige Platte. It's basically in between Interlaken and the Jungfrau, and it means that you get the perfect view of the mountains and the lakes because it's a little bit closer to Interlaken and it has an amazing cogwheel railway.
I've got to mention these lakes. These aren't just lakes. These are like the turquoise lakes. And I've heard rumors that you're coloring them.
You know that you're not the first person that accuses us of that, but I'm sure you can now confirm, now that you've been to Interlaken, that there's no color grading done to that.
Yeah, they're really that blue.
We do a lot of marketing, but we don't cheat in our marketing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I guess that could be a bit of a line you say, like, there's no need to cheat when it looks this good.
Exactly.
Okay, so we take a cog railway up and just admire the view. So that's another great thing to do.
We talked about the cows a little bit. Feels like you can touch them out of the cogwheel and you can just hear the cowbells. It's very quiet and you really go through the serene meadows.
And what is the name of that cog railway?
Schienige Plattebahn.
Okay, the Schienige Plattebahn.
But you cannot come to Interlaken and be between two lakes and not see the lakes. So of course, do a lake cruise. Often then the second question that people ask me is, well, which lake is better? It's like asking a mom what their favorite child is. They're so different. I would say see both, whether it's both on the lake cruise or, just during the summer dip in the lake as well, because you can actually swim in those lakes. And I'm not sure if you knew, but they're actually also drinking water quality.
One of my favorite things of being in Switzerland ever is when you're just walking through the city streets or you're in a mountain village and there's just this water pouring out, splish splashing into a wooden log, and you just fill up your bottle and drink it, and it's like the best water you've ever had.
Yeah.
So on those lake cruises, anywhere like that's a nice little stop off, because instead of just staying on the boat the whole time, maybe is there a nice little like a village or something that's one of your favorite stop offs you'd recommend?
So for example, on Lake Thun, I would say definitely stop in Spiez. They have a beautiful castle that's right by the boat station. And there's a vineyard that you can actually also do a small hike through and kind of learn a bit more about winemaking in the area. Or on Lake Thun still, another one of my favorites is Oberhofen. Again, there's a castle there. In total, there's actually 5 castles around Lake Thun. You can stop off there and they have a beautiful small restaurant where you can have great lunch or brunch overlooking the castle. And then on Lake Brienz, there's not as many stops as on Lake Thun because Lake Thun is significantly bigger. I would say, of course, stop at the Grand Hotel Giesbach. Very unique Grand Hotel, of course. Same architect as the Grand Hotels here in Interlaken. And my personal favorite there, try the carrot cake with your coffee.
Okay. I like the tips. Anything funny, unusual, or off the beaten path you'd recommend, like to kind of really get to know the locals?
So for me, if on Lake Brienz, if you come in the summer, stop in Rinkenberg. Rinkenberg is already a small town, but then Goldswil is even smaller. It's right next to it. You can walk there. And there's a very small lido called the Burgsäle. And you can have a dip there. And that's where I always went growing up. And it's still very local as well.
This is a pool.
No, it's a man-made lake.
Ah, so you're also making your own lakes in Switzerland.
Exactly.
I've also got to mention, when I was there, I'm a big ice hockey fan.
Yeah.
So I was staying at one of those hostels, a famous one, Balmer's, which a lot of people know that one.
How many hours did you spend at Metro Bar while you were there?
A few. I think it was a few. But I was there in November, so it wasn't anything crazy. This was like the first couple weeks in November. And I was just wandering around, in Interlaken. This is located a bit a ways back from the rail stations and things.
Yeah.
I walked in to the ice rink. I think it was a Friday night, and people were just playing ice hockey, like families, friends, just having a pickup game. And they invited me just to put on some skates and come on out and shoot around with them. And it was a real highlight of my time in Interlaken. So I wanted to suggest that as well. Mention that ice rink if you're there in the winter because it's only open seasonally, I believe.
Yeah, it's only open seasonally, exactly. I'm so happy to hear that. It's the best way, just wandering whenever you're traveling and you actually walk into those little highlights that you never would be able to plan.
Yeah, I think I was wearing my St. Louis Blues hat, and I kind of just communicated with some people, and they were obviously hockey fans because ice
Hmm.
hockey is huge in Switzerland.
Hmm.
Is there any sort of team that plays in Interlaken, like a lower level team?
Yes, a lower level team. It's called SCUI SCUI. I don't even know in which league that they play, but I mean, of course, it's more of a hobby for most people. But the next biggest one would be the Bern team, of course.
Yeah, I actually, when I was in Bern once, my wife and I went and saw a game, and that was really cool.
It's something else, right? I mean, for people saying that Swiss are reserved, go to a hockey game.
Sports are a great way to really get to know the local
Yeah.
customs. Yeah, if you think Swiss people are all bankers and watchmakers and they're quiet, go to an ice hockey game and see what happens when there's a call by the referee they don't like.
Exactly.
So the ice rink's still up and going. It's just seasonal. It's only open in the winter.
Exactly. Yeah. Still going strong and is open during the winter time.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform.
Okay, well, I just wanted to take a second to say thanks for listening to Rails, Ales, and Old Towns. I hope you're enjoying this episode and that it's helping you get excited for your next European adventure. Be sure to check out the link in the episode description because there you'll find all the information you need if you decide to follow up on the places and topics that came up on the show. Oh yeah, if you are digging the podcast and you had a spare minute, I'd be forever grateful if you were to leave a review or a rating on the platform you're listening on, as those little things do go a long way. And if you really want to get crazy, why not give me a follow on Instagram or Facebook at Rails Ales Old Towns. Back to the show.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform.
If you come to Interlaken, there's many farms that have a shop, or I mean shop, it's more of a fridge that it's an honor system where you leave a couple of francs and you get to take the cheese. So really try that. It's the perfect way to enjoy a sunset at the lake with a small picnic. That's definitely something us locals do.
Okay. And where would you find these farms? Just on the
The
outskirts of town
farms,
or?
you won't miss them. There's lots.
Interlaken is in this region near Bern, this
Exactly.
Berner Oberland.
Yeah.
Anything special from that region that we should look out for that we can get in Interlaken?
For example, what you could get is meringue, which is actually made in Meiringen. They're super traditional. So meringue then will often be served with whipped cream. So it's quite a heavy dessert, but it's delicious.
Got some meringue. It may not be local from there, but we've got to talk about roasty.
I mean, rösti you can have that anywhere in Switzerland, right? I mean, my favorite rösti then is with local melted cheese and a sunny side up egg. Thing is better than that. It's almost like a hash brown, but better.
Yeah, it's just shredded potatoes.
Exactly. Shredded potatoes. So usually the potatoes actually are already a day old, and you shred them, cook them on the stove with some butter, and it's crispy on the outside and kind of gooey on the inside.
Okay. So it's basically
say.
just a breakfast bonanza of potato, cheese, some meat if you want it, maybe some onion in there.
Exactly. But usually, actually, rösti we eat as a side at lunch or dinner, not as much at breakfast. It's more of a brunch thing. Or, I mean, if you had a really long evening at any establishment, that would be a good hangover breakfast then, yeah.
That's true. That's true. Okay, I didn't want to say it, but I'm glad you said it.
I don't speak out of experience at all.
Okay, good.
And I mean, you can't come to Switzerland and not do a fondue, right? A cheese fondue. number one recommendation. And even, yes, sometimes some locals look down on it, but you can also have a cheese fondue in the summer.
Okay, yeah, because I've heard this that it's a bit controversial for people to come in August and have fondue.
Yeah,
You know, these things that are Switzerland wide, I think a lot of people are coming to Europe for a week or two, and Interlaken might be their only Switzerland experience.
you also have to look at the size of Switzerland, right? It's not that big. So a lot of the cuisine can be similar. Of course, there's different specialities in each region, but I mean, there's the overarching fondue anywhere.
Isn't there's this famous division? What's the name of that line?
It's actually called the Röstigrabe. So your faith, the Rösti, comes back into play. And it's kind of the divide between the German-speaking and the French-speaking part of Switzerland. I'm not sure if everyone knows, but actually Switzerland has 4 official languages. German is the biggest one, then French, Italian, and Romansh. The Röstigrabe, the cultural divide is between the German-speaking part and the French-speaking part.
But no, I mean that's what's so fascinating about this country is in this small area, such an interesting mixture all in one place.
For sure. It's almost like Interlaken is Switzerland in one place. Switzerland is Europe in one place almost.
Any particular like festivals or events? And obviously, we'll just be upfront. We're speaking a couple days before August 1st, which is going to be one of them.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a big one. We have a big parade through Interlaken every year. There's paragliders flying all the cantonal flags down into town. And there's celebration all day throughout town, but not, of course, only in Interlaken, throughout Switzerland, of course, as well. In June, so last month, we had a big rock festival, the Greenfield Festival. So if you have any listeners that love metal music, they will be very happy to see the lineup there. And then, of course, the Unspunnenfest, which is only every 12 years. I believe the next one is in 3 years.
August 1st. That just want to follow up. That's Swiss
Yeah.
National Day.
Yeah, exactly.
Does that coincide with the founding of the
Yes.
when those original cantons came together?
Exactly. 1st of August, 1291, where we became the Swiss Federation.
Okay, so that's Swiss National Day. So that's like the July 4th.
Exactly. That's July 4th for Americans. Big fireworks throughout the country as well. So a celebration all around.
Talked a lot about Interlaken itself, but it is a great base.
Exactly. It's the perfect hub, actually, all year round. So we don't close. For example, like some mountain towns in Switzerland will close in the off season where the hotels are not up and running. We are really open all year round. And in winter, for example, as a hub, from Interlaken to the ski lift, it's only 30 minutes. So you hop on the train in Interlaken Ost, and it takes you straight to Grindelwald. And then there you hop onto the ski lift and you're clicked into the ski within 45 minutes. We have the new Eiger Express. So that it's a gondola that takes you from Grindelwald Terminal all the way up to Eiger Glacier within 15 minutes. The perfect start to the ski experience in the area.
And another thing I just wanted to bring up as well is obviously it's on the outskirts of Interlaken, but these little car-free resort towns of like Wengen, Murren. These are little storybook kind of places, which maybe if you stayed 4 nights in the center of Interlaken, then maybe you could go up there for a night.
Those are really quintessential Switzerland.
Like this Wengen, that is just like, I mean, you're like talking 25 minutes from Interlaken.
Yes. Well, you take the train up to Lauterbrunnen, which takes 30 minutes, quick change, and then 10, 15 minutes up. So around 45 minutes up to Wengen exactly.
Okay, 25, 45, And then this Murren's a little more of an effort. You take the train to Lauterbrunnen, you take a bus, and then you hop on a cable car.
Yeah, exactly. definitely the best. I mean, in general, right, public transportation in Switzerland is so amazing. Whether the train takes you somewhere, and if the train doesn't take you there, the bus will take you there. If the bus doesn't take you there, a cable car will take you there. It's really, it's so accessible all around.
And you might look at the schedule and you might think this isn't going to work, but it always works.
It always works. The different transportation systems talk to each other like once a year, and all the planning that goes into it. And so it always works. Even if you only have 3 minutes of change, it will work.
I remember, being handed like a piece of paper by someone at Interlaken Ost station, like a little piece of paper, and circling things like, you do this, you do this, you do this. And then we're just looking at it like, do all this and it's going to all work out. Yeah, right. But then it always worked out.
Exactly. And I mean, a fun fact, I don't even have a driver's license, so I really know what I'm talking about when I'm saying public transportation works in Switzerland.
Speaking of that, last thing let's talk about, since this is called Rails, Ales, and Old Towns, and this is a perfect place for rail exploration, to arrive in Interlaken via the train. You're going to get great views of Lake Thun along the way if you're coming from Bern.
Exactly. It's really a great hub, right? With all the transportation that comes together in Interlaken. I mean, even from the other side, if you arrive by Lucerne Interlaken Express via Lake Brienz, or then you go to Bern or to Montreux, it's really either way the most scenic way to arrive in Interlaken, I think.
Well, also, and there's this Golden Pass, this famous route it goes from Lucerne to Montreux, but the Golden Pass Express goes from Interlaken to Montreux.
Golden Pass Express, they have new trains, and it's actually possible to ride from Interlaken all the way to Montreux and not need to change anymore. Because the gauge, you can barely feel it, but the train lifts up in Zweisimmen a little bit. The gauge changes and goes back down, and then they can continue on the route.
So this is the Golden Pass Express, which is kind of a touristic train. But I mean, if you took a train, if you went to station and said, I need to get to Montreux from Interlaken, the only way to go, you're going to go this route and get some great scenery.
Exactly. That's guaranteed.
Celina, thanks so much for joining us. It was a pleasure. Thanks for giving us more details on Interlaken. Is there one last thing you'd like us to remember about Interlaken before you go?
Actually, one thing that I just realized with Rails, Ales, and Old Towns, you can easily combine in Interlaken as well, because we talked about the rail right now. Interlaken is an old town. And then we also have a lot of microbreweries where you can actually also have the perfect pint of local beer as well.
Do you want to give a shout out to one brewery that you like?
So, I mean, the biggest one would be the Ruggenbräu. That's our flagship beer that you can get in any restaurant when you're in Interlaken. And then maybe more of a niche one would be Harige Kuh, so two Scotsmen that are doing hairy cow beer. And they're more in the IPA game. Very delicious.
Okay, I appreciate you catching me on the Rails, Ales, and Old Towns. And
no worries. Thank you so much for having me, Scott.
All right, thanks so much.